A reading from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 20, verses 27 through 38. Some Sadducees, those who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him a question. Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife but no children, the man shall marry the widow and raise up the children for his brother.
Now there are 7 brothers. The first married a woman and died childless. Then the second and the third married her. And so in the same way, all 7 died childless. Finally, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 married her.
Jesus said to them, those who belong to this age marry and are given in marriage, but those who are considered worthy of a place in that age and in the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. Indeed, they cannot die anymore because they are like angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection.
And the fact that the dead are raised, Moses himself showed in the story about the bush, where he speaks of the Lord as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Now he is God, not of the dead, but of the living, for to him all of them are alive. Hear what God is saying to the people. Thanks be to God.
In today's story from Luke, Jesus has been thrown into yet another controversy. After all those encounters with the Pharisees he's already had, he's just finished silencing scribes and elders and chief priests who have challenged his personal authority to speak and tried to trap him with a political question about whether Jews should pay taxes to Caesar. And now here come the Sadducees trying to embroil Jesus in a theological debate. Hey, Jesus, let's discuss this newfangled idea about the resurrection that you and the Pharisees are supporting. Let us riddle you this hypothetical legal scenario. Say there's a man. He dies without a son, and of course, the man is obligated to impregnate the widow so that the deceased property can have a legitimate heir. Those are the rules. Moses said so, even had a name for it, called it levirate marriage. And say that that brother dies without having produced an heir, and this happens over and over, one brother after another, unsuccessfully meeting the legal requirements for property transmission. Then what? If there's really a resurrection, Jesus, then in the resurrection, to whom will this woman be wife? For 7 had her as wife. I'm reading the Greek. In the resurrection, to whom will the woman belong? This is such a clever question. These Sadducees, they know what they're doing. It's one of those gotcha questions. How is Jesus going to get around the plain, clear sense of Scripture? The Sadducees are right on this front, that resurrection is not explicitly mentioned in the Tanakh. So what will Jesus do? Will he deny the Bible, or will he deny the resurrection? And in this moment, I almost hold my breath because the Sadducees are poised to win one over on not only Jesus, but the Pharisees, who were actually the first to raise the resurrection of the body to an article of faith. But beware, my friends, of trying to outsmart Jesus. Jesus might just instead turn your world upside down. That's what happened in today's story. Jesus responds to the Sadducees' question about the resurrection by pulling the premise right out from under them. In the resurrection, Jesus says, neither do men marry nor are women given in marriage. God's realm is not bound by the rules of this life. Even the rules from the Bible. What you are so sure of right now is not the whole truth. What you are so sure of right now is not the whole truth. Luke really wants to make sure that we hear that so much that he'll go to the extent to, here it comes, redact Mark. Luke redacts Mark to make it clear. Luke adds to Mark, in this age, men marry and women are taken in marriage, but in that age, things are different. In that age, people do not have the roles of husband and wife. They are instead children of God, children of the resurrection. They are the heirs, not of human institutions, but heirs of God. I know folks, maybe you're one of them, that finds this passage a little disturbing. What do you mean that my partner won't be my partner forever? That the until death do we part was actually serious. Won't my soulmate stay with my soul forever? Again, for some folks, and you may be one of them, you may want God's realm to look like this one. But for others in the room and others in the world, this teaching is a comfort. It must have been good news to any ancient woman who had been given to 7 men to prop up the requirements of patrilineal inheritance. And good news to those brothers who also had no say in taking on this legal obligation. It is good news today to those who have not experienced traditional structures of family and marriage as sources of joy. It can be very good news to hear that respectable family status is not a determinant of your status in the kingdom. In God's realm, all are children of God. There is even more good news here in Luke's version of the story. Luke follows Mark in reporting that Jesus said that God is the God of the living and not of the dead. But it is Luke that adds what that means. Because to God, all are alive. Everyone, living or not, are alive to God. So here, in the midst of a religious and political controversy worthy of a political ad, Jesus takes the Sadducees' question as an opportunity to teach a profound truth. That our ties to one another and to God are not bound by legal status, social respectability, or the state of our bodies. And as I say that, I hear again Dr. Williams' sermon from last week and her testimony to how her son Jesse is more alive to her after his death than he was before. And I hear again her belief, her joy, that he is no longer bound by the strictures of this life, and can live free in God. And Luke is on a roll. Luke adds something else to this story, at least if we would have read to the logical end of the pericope, rather than where the lectionary left us. Just 2 more verses, lectionary. We needed 2 more verses. This pericope extends 2 more verses. Then some of the scribes answered, "Teacher, you have spoken well." And they no longer dared to ask him any question. In those 2 verses, not only does the story end where it began, we call that an inclusio, right? Isn't it nice and beautiful the way it does that? But also in it, we can glimpse a flicker of hope that maybe religious controversies can end. If some of the very scribes that started out the chapter trying to kill Jesus can by the end praise his words, then surely our own controversies might be resolved. And yet, it only takes 3 more chapters for the scribes, these or other ones, along with the chief priest and the elders, to turn on Jesus again. They have their police seize Jesus and lead him to his death. The voices of controversy seem to have a life of their own. But beware of trying to outsmart Jesus. Jesus might turn your world right side up. Because the next time we hear about resurrection in Luke is when Jesus returns after his crucifixion to share bread with fellow travelers on the way to Emmaus and his disciples, his family of choice. And as Luke ends and as the book of Acts begins, that age, God's age, has already begun. The new way of living has begun. In God's age, it might not just be the Sadducees, whose theological assumptions and fundamental convictions about what is true are challenged. It might also be ours. Political parties, theological positions, legal status, getting good grades, policies, traditions, social structure, metrics, rubrics, and standards. They are all really important in this life. The matters of this age must be attended to, and we must work to make them just. But they are not the grounding of our existence. They are not eternal. What beliefs are you holding on today that are keeping you from full life in God? Beliefs about family, success, respectability. What structures have you so internalized that prevent you from embracing what it means to be fully alive? To us, as well as to the Sadducees, Jesus offers good news. There is a hope that extends beyond all we know, all that we believe, the structures in which we worship and live and love and pray. The good news is that what matters is that we are and will continue to be alive to God. In the resurrection, they asked, "To whom will the woman belong?" And Jesus responds, "She and we will belong to God." Thanks be to God.